Hello and welcome back to the YouTube channel for Catch. My name is Sam and I'm the founder and lead coach here at Catch. Unshakable confidence is the key to getting everything that you want in life and dating. So on this channel we talk about everything to do with confidence, mindset and how to utilise that in your dating and relationship life. If you want to work with us in any way, all that info is in the description box below. So today we just wanted to talk about quite a popular topic recently in dating, which is polarity, or masculine energy and feminine energy, and how those two complement one another. And the theory around polarity is that we, as each of us as humans, have a mixture of masculine energy traits and feminine energy traits, and they're not exclusive to gender. But as a person, we have a balance of the two, and then we are ideally matched to somebody that has the sort of opposite balance of the two, so a yin and yang, I suppose, where those masculine energy traits and those feminine energy traits, how people interpret this is very different if you research it based on who is speaking on the topic, which is one caution we'll put on it that we'll come to later. But masculine energy traits tend to be described as providing, protecting, being strong, being courageous, decisive, more logical or rational, numbers-based in how they make decisions, and quite goal-orientated. So this is the outcome that I want and I'm going to go after it. And, ambitious, assertive, etc., other words in that arena. Whereas feminine energy traits are typically described as, and as I say, this is very different based on who's talking on the topic, but feminine energy tends to be described as more go with the flow, more intuitive, more emotional rather than logical or rational or numbers based, and more about creativity and connection with nature and receiving, so allowing things to come into your life and receiving from others, and it's more of a caring energy. And the theory then says, as I mentioned before, that ideally a couple would have, let's say, a full cup of masculine energy and a full cup of feminine energy. So if one partner has more masculine energy, the other person has to have less masculine energy to balance. And, or one has dominantly masculine, one has dominantly feminine, or you might end up with two people that have a balance of both energies. That is the theory. And we wanted to talk a bit about this because what we've seen is that some people see that theory, and we have talked about it in a video before called Dating Advice is BS. Make up your own rules. We'll link that down below. And some people see that theory and it really resonates with them because perhaps there's someone that really identifies with the feminine traits, or that's the version of them that they want to be and feels most authentic, and they're looking for someone that has the masculine traits and they really believe in that, the complementary nature of those two. Or vice versa, some people look at the masculine traits and they identify with that, or they see a balance, right? And then they look for someone that has a balance. But on the flip side, what we also see is some people that maybe haven't got the results that they want in dating, are already feeling kind of low on themselves, not too confident, not sure where they're going wrong. They stumble across this content, and maybe they are someone who identifies as a woman, and they notice that they have some of the masculine energy traits alongside the feminine traits. And then they look at the polarity content and they say, and what some of the polarity content tells them is that the reason that they haven't been successful in dating is because they've got too many of these masculine traits. And essentially they need to change themselves and become more in their feminine energy to attract a relationship with a man. Or vice versa, there might be a man who, again, isn't feeling great in themselves, doesn't feel really confident, or isn't getting the results they want, come across this content and think, I don't have enough masculine energy, and so I need to change myself and become more like this. And then that can become a spiral and negatively impact them even further, because they already feel low on themselves, and then they're looking at this content and thinking there's something wrong with them and that they have to change themselves to be deserving of love, or choose between being their authentic selves and getting the relationship that they want, which is not true, for one, and we'll go into some reasons why. You can have the relationship you want being who you are. And also, that's not a long-term, that's not a healthy way to live life, to believe you have to change yourself significantly to get the things that you want, or change yourself to be worthy of something. You know, change who you are at your core being if you're a good person. But as I say, for some people who are looking for an answer, that is an answer that comes up and they think that's what they have to do. So we want to reassure you that you can get the relationship that you want and have the relationship dynamics that you want and be that best version of you who you imagine. When you imagine your dream relationship, you can have the kind of partner you're looking for and be that best version of you who's in that relationship. And the key to that is not necessarily polarity or masculine feminine energies. If that appeals to you and that's the kind of dynamic you want, then absolutely go in that direction. But if that doesn't feel right to you, don't feel like you need to change yourself to get that relationship, because you don't need to. We've seen hundreds of examples of where that's not the case, which is what we'll go into in a second. So firstly, we just want to reassure you that who you are is enough. You can have the relationship you want. And if polarity or masculine feminine energy does not resonate with you, you can ignore it. And these are the reasons why, or the flaws that we see in it that can affect someone's confidence. And as we say on this channel, unshakable confidence is the key to getting everything you want. So if it doesn't resonate, drop polarity and just focus on building your confidence with some of our other content, and that will take you on a much better path to get what you want out of dating, rather than thinking you have to change yourself. So talking quickly about some of the flaws we see in polarity and why we don't think it suits for a lot of people or makes sense, is that even though a lot of people that talk about polarity say masculine and feminine energy, we all have aspects of each within us. Even if we're really dominantly masculine energy or dominantly feminine energy, we all have all of those traits within us to some extent, and we lean into those different traits when we need. And a lot of those coaches also say, or psychologists, etc., say masculine and feminine energy are not related to a gender or a biological sex. As I say, everybody has elements of it. However, I think what we need to acknowledge is that the word masculine is associated with men and the word feminine is associated with women generally. And historically, and even now, because in history, we've had a very male-dominated environment around most of the world. There are some tribes where women are leaders, etc. But in the modern world and in most countries, men have been the historical leaders, and we still live in a patriarchal society. Because of that, anything that's labelled masculine is typically seen as good in society and is rewarded. So things like ambition, being driven, being assertive, being direct, being outcome driven, a lot of those things are really rewarded. And that's why even sometimes in workplaces you see senior women adopting those traits. So subconsciously, a lot of people see masculine energy as powerful and good, and feminine energy as weak and bad. And so even though we're breaking down these old patriarchal ways of looking at the world, and women increasingly are being seen as equal to men in many ways, the rise in polarity in masculine and feminine energy is almost it can come across as a re-emergence of patriarchal views, i.e., masculine energy is good and what we need in the world and should be the leader within these personal relationships, and lean into those masculine traits as makes them the leader of that personal relationship, whereas the feminine person with the dominant feminine energy should be more go with the flow and easygoing and submissive, and shouldn't be a leader in those relationships. So quite quickly we've gone from talking about energy to, well, actually masculine energy is men, feminine energy is women, and guess who's the leader in those relationships? It should be the one with masculine energy. So that sounds a little bit too familiar to some of the assumptions and gender norms that we've been trying to fight against and dismantle in society. And so there's a high risk by focusing on polarity as a theory that we slip back in some of the progress that we've made. Also, as I mentioned earlier in this video, there are people where this theory doesn't resonate with them because maybe they see aspects of themselves in all of the traits, and actually our perspective is that the most healthy people and the most healthy couples have all of those traits. They can be assertive, they can be a leader, they can be go with the flow, they can be intuitive, they can be in touch with nature, they can be creative, and we utilize those as and when we need. And those are the healthiest individuals, which then make the healthiest couples, because you're not looking to someone else to complete you in any way or provide something that you don't necessarily have. And also, if we feel restricted by those things, and either way that we have to change ourselves or we have to mute certain parts of our personality to fit those, the masculine or the feminine energy, that can result in very poor mental health and quite quickly. So a drop in our confidence, but also mental health. And I think what's talked about less, especially around this, is that when we look at typical gender roles, there is a real issue with male mental health. And a lot of that is because of the pressure to financially provide in some societies, being completely on the man. And also because of this misconception that to be masculine, or because you're a man, you can't talk about your emotions, you can't be vulnerable, you can't lean on others for support. Or if you do, the only way you can do that is with a partner. And that's why I think we see such a high suicide rate in men. So we have to be very careful that this masculine feminine energy doesn't take us a step back on some of the progress we've made, where people feel they can be their authentic selves and break out of the gender norms of men and women and be who they truly are and don't feel restricted by these things. And as I say, there's still this perception that, masculine is powerful and feminine is weak, which we completely disagree with. Thirdly, we think that the masculine and feminine energy topics and how they're taught in some ways can be exclusionary to non-binary and LGBTQIA+ people. Because again, the whole masculine energy being close to men and feminine energy being close to women is what we're trying to break free of. So in some ways it is taught in a positive way, and say people who are non-binary or part of the LGBTQ+ community might say, okay, actually that resonates because I can see I have some masculine and some feminine traits or feminine energy traits, and therefore it helps them own that. But it could also make them feel like they need to identify with one of the other two. So we feel like that theory is more targeted towards straight couples, which can be exclusionary to every other kind of relationship and coupling between people. So what would we suggest instead? Well, what we would suggest is understanding what trait, the masculine and feminine energy traits, curating all of those within you to an extent that feels authentic for you. And yes, it can be helpful to have a balance with somebody else. And naturally, I think sometimes we're drawn to people that have those opposite traits because you balance. But don't necessarily be attached to that and think, well, I have to play this role and someone else has to play this role. Figure out what's authentic to you and figure out what traits you're looking for in someone else. Even write this down, what that best version of you is in that relationship, what you're looking for, and then look for people that meet those traits, regardless of whether they're considered masculine energy or feminine energy. It's more important to nurture all of those within you so that you've got that healthy balance and can flex as you need it to look after yourself and do the things that you want to in life and be your own authentic self. And then go out into the world and look for that person that meets the traits that you want. And it can be great, as we say, to sort of play to each other's strengths and have that balance, but don't feel tied to exactly what that looks like in terms of polarity. And also spend some time thinking about what masculine and feminine energy and those traits means to you. Because this is the other thing that we can see, is that people talk about what is masculine and what's considered feminine in very different ways. And so if you really love, and this is how I feel like I have masculine energy traits and feminine energy traits, and I love that. But I still consider myself overall a feminine person. And so I had to redefine to myself what feminine meant and what the most authentic expression was to me if I ignored or separated myself from some of the expectations of certain traits in a workplace or in business, or what I would do if certain traits weren't celebrated more than others in society. But also there's some of those masculine energy traits that are part of me and I still really love, but I consider myself a feminine woman. So redefine what masculine and feminine means to you. And maybe masculinity to you means being vulnerable and developing healthy relationships and being that emotional support to the people around you, not just some of what is considered traditionally masculine. So as we say in most of our recent videos, take your power back, make yourself accountable, and design the dating life and the way of seeing yourself that feels best to you, and do that shamelessly. So I'd love to hear your perspectives on this topic. Feel free to comment down below, or if you have any questions. Thank you for liking, sharing, commenting and subscribing, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks, bye.